The Sustainability Now Telesummit is honored to share audacious ideas and innovative solutions from more than 30 experts from around the globe. Learn how we can work together to shape a world that works. Here's your host, Mira Rubin.
Welcome back to the Sustainability Now Telesummit, Shaping a World That Works. Today, we are speaking with Brian D. Ridgway, and Brian is very dear to my heart because he has been instrumental in personal change for me, transformation. I'm going to call it transformation, that has really facilitated this summit in a lot of ways. And you might be wondering, what? Well, the perceptions that we have of ourselves dictate the kinds of things that happen in our lives and the things that we're capable of. And the work that Brian does, I found out about him because someone I knew had what most people would call miraculous recovery from an illness that people don't recover from. And I thought, whatever that is that makes the impossible possible, that's what I want. I want to be unbounded. I want to be able to have the life of my dreams. I want to be able to create my ideal world and my ideal life. And I've worked with Brian, and what I noticed is that the person that I've become, that I am becoming, is a person that has fewer and fewer limits. And I want to say no limits. I recognize that that I have the opportunity for no limits. And so Brian does something called Level 5 mentoring. And the perspective is radically different from other self-help type programs that you might be encountering, because it creates a whole new context for being and for perceiving the world. And so because consciousness is such a fundamental and essential part of the transformation that we need to create on this planet to make it a wonderful, wonderful place and healthful place and joyful place for so many people, Brian is here to help us shape that world that works. So Brian, welcome with my deepest gratitude and appreciation for your joining us for the summit.
I'm so happy to be here with you, Mira.
Welcome. So tell us, what is Level 5 mentoring?
Well, Level 5 mentoring is what I am turned into a business. So at the age of 3, I discovered that I had a very strange gift, and I viewed it, frankly, as a curse for the first 46 years of my life. I had no frame of reference for it. The family life that I had, the abusive and neglectful situation that I went through as a child, my parents were not armed and prepared. They had no clue did I have a demon or did I have an angel? They had no frame of reference. So I would look at a person and I could see exactly how they were holding themselves back, like literally as if I were looking through a pane of glass. I could see it, and I could strangely communicate that even from a very early age when I didn't have much of a vocabulary. And I went on doing that for everything else that I touched in my life. I was always doing this for people, meeting them and having them reveal what they were dealing with, and I would help them resolve it. And then about 8 years ago, in 2011, I had just the ultimate awakening experience, and I was inspired to make this thing that I do that facilitates miracles for so many people, to make that my business. And so Level 5 Mentoring was born. And what we do is we help you to become the infinite, limitless, perfect being of power with access to ever-present guidance that you actually are. We help you become that. And part of the way we do that is I call it dissolving the illusion of problems. And it brings you into your full power and your full presence so that you can begin to consciously, intentionally create the body you want to live in, the health, the business, and the wealth that you want to live in, the deep connected relationships with no limitations, and actually very relevant to this summit, to create the world that you want to live in consciously, intentionally, and without any perceived thing holding you back. In other words, without you holding yourself back anymore. That's the bottom line of it.
And well, the really interesting thing too about one of many interesting things about your work is that you're working a lot with releasing, and for lack of a better word, releasing stuck emotion that's kind of embedded in our being and influencing all of our communications, all of our actions. And maybe you can talk about some of those formative events or how that percolates through a person's life to create these illusions.
That's really a beautiful question, and I'll tell you what I'm going to do. Feel free to rein me in at any point if necessary, Mira, to keep me on topic. I feel very inspired about what you just asked. So I'm going to contrast this just a bit with self-help, with goal setting, personal development type of things, and then with spiritual teaching and spiritual work. A lot of people talk about goal setting and using practical, pragmatic, as they see it, steps to change their lives. And what I see is that works for about 0.5% of the people that apply it. And I was very curious about that. In my own life of misery, I literally spent over $300,000 and decades on self-help, personal development, and energy work and spiritual work to just make my life work. It wasn't a luxury for me. I was dealing with so much of the stuff that you're talking about. And I've discovered the approaches that people take. So goal setting being one. Another thing being handling unconscious beliefs. A lot of people, especially law of attraction oriented folks, talk about blocks and moving blocks and dissolving blocks and all of this type of stuff. And then there's trauma release and emotional release, tapping, and all this whole universe of techniques. And
it's all good stuff. It all has value, and it gets to a point.
That's right. That's exactly right. And so, in order to talk about this, one of the things that I'll be talking about in a few minutes anyway is getting past the illusion of opposites. And so very often when I talk about this, even talking about it can be triggering for some people. They find, wow, I feel upset hearing this, okay? But I no longer believe in pride or being prideful about anything. And I also no longer believe in society's programming about being humble and trying to act less than. So in between pride and humility, I just want to say that somehow, for some reason, the gift that I was born with, it includes and it eclipses and transcends every one of those modalities that I just listed, including shadow work and inner child work and all the other approaches that are out there. So what I advocate and what I help people to do is literally to dissolve the issue that occurred, the frozen emotions that are frozen in the tissues and the body of the person, as well as the beliefs, the certainties, and the knowings that are going on. And I'm going to say an interesting phrase here that we might talk about later. In all of their bodies, their physical body, their emotional body, their mental body, and what I call their universal body. So by helping someone to remove it from all bodies at the same time, literally miraculous outcomes are the norm, because when you handle all of it at once, there is nothing to come back or repeat. And on a daily basis, I work with people who say, well, Brian, I've worked on this issue for 30 years, or I've cried this 1,000 times. And I say, but you haven't cried it out, and there's a difference. So it's really getting down to the roots of the roots of the roots underneath all self-sabotage and all business sabotage. And actually, they're the same thing.
I want to jump into a phrase that is sort of the banner for what my experience is with this work, and that is that life happens for me and through me. That I am the creator of my life, and the world. So we're going to just jump right into the deep end, folks, because this is the context that Brian works from. And it may be new to you, and you may find yourself sort of recoiling a little bit. Breathe deep and breathe into it, and you're going to learn about breathing in a little bit. And go for it, Brian.
All righty. Well, so the three things, Mira, that you have requested that all of us that come to this summit that we contribute is an action that people can do that'll immediately create results. Then some education of applicable things that the listener can take forward, and then a paradigm shift or an inspiration view. And in a way, I'm going to blend those three things into one. So once again, I invite you to rein me in, help me to fine tune just to make sure that I deliver this in the way that's going to be most beneficial. All right, so I'm going to start with an action right now, and that is going to be a type of breathing. Most people are familiar with the idea of breath work, okay? And that is not what I'm advocating. I'm all for breath work once someone has their life working and once someone has reached some degree of stability. However, most forms of breath work, well, a great analogy would be this. People come to me, I'd say at least one or two people a month that come to do my highest work with me. They'll say, well, Brian, do you help people levitate? Can you help me to be able to actually levitate? And I say, well, let's talk about getting your life working first. Why is it that you think that you want to get into magical powers when you, quite frankly, your relationships are nowhere near the way you want? You're not nearly at the level of financial joy that you want. Let's handle that first. So similarly, a lot of this advanced breath stuff, I prefer, and one of the cores of what I do with people is to help them to become present first so that they can get out of fight or flight completely, come into total balance. And I find presence is actually the key to everything else. So until you become present, you're building your skyscraper on quicksand. No matter how good it looks on paper and no matter how well it seems to be going, it's just a matter of time before the crumble occurs. So coming from presence is the key. So let's start there. I'm going to show a model of breathing, and if you will practice it with me right now, it's actually going to help you to hear everything else that I'm going to say and deliver and give today on such a deeper level. And you might not feel that recoiling. You might, this is actually making sense from here. So what I want to encourage you to do is to breathe in through your nose and out through your mouth. And you might notice that naturally when you breathe in through your nose, your mouth closes. And on the exhale, your mouth opens. Now, we could spend 3 or 4 days going deep into the science and the magic behind what happens when this switch opens and closes rhythmically. Just trust and feel. That's one of the things that's happening. So as you breathe in through your nose and out through your mouth, you're creating this cyclical motion of some of the electrical currents in your body. The second thing I want to bring your attention to is that you breathe in and out for the same duration. So roughly the same length of time for in and out. You don't have to time it, though there's nothing wrong with, if you choose to start living this, you can set a metronome up and every once in a while use it just to get that duration perfectly matched. It's not necessary as long as you're close. Now that you're breathing in through your nose and out through your mouth, you might already notice you're beginning to calm down just a bit. You might notice a little bit more centering. If not, you will in a moment. And now making the duration the same in and out, you're beginning to bring the hemispheres of your brain into coherence. You're beginning to bring your sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous system into coherence. You're beginning to bring your heart and your brain into coherence, where there's a balance and all your systems start to calm down. You're moving into presence, which is the foundation of absolutely everything else. If you're not present, you're building on quicksand. No matter the conversation you're having, the business you're building, or the situation in life you're attempting to deal with, fight or flight is not where you want to come from. Right? So the next piece of this is to begin to breathe in just a bit more and breathe out just a bit more than you habitually have been. So now, if you already know how to do abdominal breathing, you want to make absolutely certain that you're doing that. So in other words, on the inhale, your diaphragm is going down as your lungs expand and your belly should be poking out. And on the exhale, as your diaphragm rises back up to compress the lungs and press the air out through your nose, the belly goes back in. I highly recommend, if you have not already mastered abdominal breathing and you're watching this video, hit pause, go do a quick Google search, grab a couple of links, how to do it, or if you end up downloading my free book, I've created a couple of videos in there that will help you to master it very, very quickly. All right, the bottom line is that doing this the way most people do it is this. That'll actually still keep you in fight or flight. But if you're breathing in and out the same duration, in and out through the nose, and breathing in more, you will still be calmer than you were breathing erratically. Little secret side note here. When you're feeling upset, when you're addressing something, when the conversation gets heated, when you find, oh no, that thing is happening again, if you'll immediately go back into this breathing, you're going to find yourself much more resourced, calm, and stable to be able to actually move through it this time rather than throwing in the towel, giving up, getting frustrated, getting angry, walking away from it or starting a fight. This really, really will help you in those simple ways. The last couple of things I want to say about this breath. Number one, if you'll do it through the rest of this conversation, one of the things you're going to notice is how easy it is to forget. The second thing I want to say is just give yourself a hug, be gentle. Hey, I'm going to continue this. Don't fuss at yourself for forgetting it. And then I want to tell you that if you use this as a way of living life, not as a practice that you do for 15 minutes a day, although that's better than nothing. If you do this as a way of living, if you wake up in the morning, put your hands on your belly, and before you get out of that bed, take several of those breaths and say, you know what, I'm going to continue this throughout the day, and every time I forget, I'm going to remind myself. The difference it will make in your life will completely blow your mind. The calmness that you're going to feel, don't be surprised if health situations start to reverse themselves. And a last motivation that I can give you is that when you begin to breathe in this way, one of the things that happens early on is you'll actually begin to feed your lizard brain, your central brain, with more oxygen in a more stable and consistent way than you ever have. That'll spill over into your central brain, your second brain, your mammalian brain. And if you keep that up, you'll actually turn on your higher brain, bringing in more insight, more intuition, helping you to tap into your guidance and deeper awareness. You do this when you go for a walk, in the middle of your workday. You go out and take a walk or lay down and take a nap and breathe in this way. You will have insights and inspirations come through that will answer questions that you would never have answered being in your normal frazzled way, trying to push through and make it happen. Okay, so that's the first thing that I want to cover. Any questions or any fine tuning on that, Mira? I know this is something you've been practicing.
I just want to say to everybody listening, it sounds really simple, and it is as profound as it is simple. Yeah. Because it brings you right back to being able to be where you are when you're there.
Absolutely, beautifully said. All right, so let's get into the educational information here. And as I say, the educational, immediately applicable information that I'm going to give will be blended with the paradigm shift that I want to offer. And interestingly, for me at least, and for the clients that I work with, the paradigm shift, once you become present, which is the first necessity, absolute necessity, as you begin to shift your paradigm from what you thought you were and what you thought life was and what you thought the way everything worked to the way it actually works, it can instantly facilitate miraculous changes. And so I'm gonna assume that probably 70% of the people here in my voice, there's a fairly high probability you've heard at least the idea that we create our own reality. You may lean that way. We create our own reality. We are more powerful than we've ever dreamed. And then for 30%, that might sound a little woo-woo. Well, maybe we create it up to a certain limit, but what about other people? And with the time we have today, I will not go exhaustively into all of that. And that's a conversation for another time. I want to give you the basics that you can use right now. So you are, in fact, creating your reality. All of it. Because in creating your reality, you're creating the illusion of everyone else as a part of what you're creating. Now, the more you just try that idea on, the more it's going to start to make sense, even if it sounds very far-fetched now. So I'm going to restate what I do with people while you're breathing now, because I'm sure you're remembering to keep that breathing up. You're just experimenting with me. Don't trust, just experiment and see what happens. What I do is I help you to become, once again, fully and completely the infinite, unlimited, eternal being of energy beyond right and wrong, beyond good and bad, beyond better and worse, beyond positive and negative, beyond limitations. Infinite, unlimited being that you actually are, and to know it and to live as that, accessing your infinite, limitless power at all times. And that includes accessing your infinite, ever-present, flawless guidance so that you can create on purpose and consciously the body that you want to live in, the health, the radiant energy that you want to express, the business, the world-changing experience that you are here to deliver without filters and without limitations and without anything to block it, no glass ceilings, to create the wealth and the experience of abundance that's actually what you are, to step into that. And beautifully, this facilitates you being able to create the deep, connected, harmonious, loving relationships with others, especially those closest to you and with everyone, so that you can begin to create the world you want to live in. And I literally mean creating the world you want to live in such a way that you're moving from bliss to greater bliss to greater bliss. Now, that may sound a bit much. That's okay. Breathe a little deeper and accept the possibility, because you're already creating the world you have out of what you think and believe that you know, all of the emotions that are bound up in your tissues, all the unconscious things that you think you know that you're not even aware of, and the way all that spins off frozen loops of energy that keep bringing back more of the same. So there's a really, really tight summary of the whole thing. Now, what happens is that we're here as infinite, unlimited beings. The way I like to summarize it is, let's just say, this is showing up on the screen pretty well. So this center of this gong can represent eternity. At the eternal level, there's no change, there's no movement, because there's no space. There's no possibility of anything moving, so there's no possibility of anything changing. There's no time, there's no space. There's only infinite possibilities. And all the great seers have talked about this. All of the great, the quantum physicists who have seen down into the mechanisms of what's actually happening here, they all see this. However, for you and me, we hear about it and it makes sense, and we kind of have a whole bunch of yeah buts. This still doesn't work. This still doesn't work. Right? So if we understand what's happening, it arms us, it empowers us to be able to begin to change it, especially if we're breathing adequately to bring our systems into balance. In through the nose, out through the mouth, balancing our sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous system. Same duration in and out. Rising into more presence, expanding into more of our complete self, where we find that we are actually creating everything, that we can change everything. So being that at the eternal level, there is no time or space, nothing can change, there can't be experience, and yet all infinite possibilities are there ready to be expressed. Infinite being, that would be you, says, I would like to have an experience. And so you project out of eternity into this illusion of time and space. The first thing you create is the illusion of time and space. And it's as if there were a projector aiming infinite, unlimited, inexhaustible light, information stored as light, into this experience. And you create the body, the world, the universe that you're living in. And one of the summaries of what I do, this is something you can begin to ask, how might I use this information? As you look out at the universe, everything that you have ever seen and everything that you have ever experienced, from the Monsantos and the Bayers and the Nestles to the Mother Teresas and the Eckhart Tolles and the Buddhas and Jesus, whatever, the mountains, the rocks, the rivers, the pollution, and the stars. That infinite unlimited energy projects through what you call you out and creates this universe. And there's a whole bunch of stuff you might notice that you don't like. A lot of things that you want to change. And what I'm proposing to you is that all of it that you have ever seen and heard and felt and experienced is the reflection out there of everything that you think and believe that you know in here. And that includes the fact that the vast majority of everything that you think you believe that you know, I'm talking 99+% of everything you think and believe that you know, is actually hidden from you, by you, in your unconscious or subconscious areas. And that's where all that emotion from all the childhood stuff, all the parental stuff, and we all have much, much, much more of that than we have any idea or recollection. Most of it is so intensely repressed that we're using our creative energy to hold in our pain infinitely more than we have. So we don't have that much left to create the universe we want, which is part of why we keep getting the same thing over and over. And then all of that energy of unpleasantness, frozen energy, frozen emotion, frozen trauma, spins off endlessly, creating more of what we don't want. So we are literally, we say, well, I would never create that. Why would I ever do that? You didn't necessarily do it intentionally. It's a part of what you did intend. You are creating your universe. And these things that are happening that you don't like, here's one of the clues along the way. Those things that you don't like are not actually bad things happening. They're actually reflections showing up for you out there of the stuff that's in here, so that you could see it, become aware of it, love it back into infinite possibilities, and recreate the universe and world that you live in. But nobody's told us that. And here's one of the ironies. You created a self-help industry and a personal development industry, even a spiritual teaching industry that teaches partial truths so that you can hold on to the illusion until you're done. Now, I was kind of thinking, you might grab me there, Mira.
Well, I'm going to grab you. I want to ask, why would we do such a thing? If we're infinite, unlimited beings, why in the world would we create a situation with so much pain and anguish?
Well, the ultimate answer was in the first part of the question, if we're infinite, unlimited beings. So I have a story that I can tell very briefly, that a lot of people find that this little funny story It's as valuable as any other creation myth, I'll tell you that much. So here you are, infinite, unlimited being. Just try this on with me for a minute. You're infinite, unlimited being. You don't have a body. You can't be harmed, killed, or damaged in any way. And if you wanted to live a life, you could create an endless number of universes because you're inexhaustible. You are infinite and eternal. You're beyond our wildest imagination. So you could literally create an endless number of universes and be every living thing in it, disguise yourself, give yourself amnesia, and you could do it an infinite, unlimited number of times. And after 100 billion, trillion, quadrillion times doing it, you won't have any less opportunity to do it an infinite number of times, right? So here you were saying, at this eternal level, I can't do anything. I can't go anywhere. I can't have sex or eat pickles or dance or go to the beach or watch a movie. I can't do anything. There's no experience here. There's no space and no time. I can't move. So I'm going to project out and have this so that I can have experience. Well, here you were as the bubble getting ready to become time and space and create this. And you looked down and you saw, door number 1. I get to be, the queen of the universe, or the empress, or the emperor of the universe, if I'm going to be male or female or whatever along the spectrum there. So let's just, for this case, let's use female, feminine expression. So I get to be the queen of the universe. Wow, this is cool. That's too much. Just a galaxy's enough. 30, 45,000 planets. That's enough for me. And I get to be the queen of the universe. I get to live 10,000 years in flawless, perfect health. I'm liking this, man. And I get to be surrounded by amazing people, and we're just constantly creating the world that we want. And I have a whole bunch of servants that are all totally blissfully happy, and they're all well-fed. And I just love this. I'm going to do this. I'm going to have this experience. So you get ready to manifest that universe with you seemingly being that character. But then you go, wait a minute, what's this I notice over here? Door number 2. I get to live in 1982 in Africa, in a village where malaria has wiped out almost all of the adults, and I get to be born to a mom who dies 5 minutes later. There's hardly any adults left to take care of anybody. So I'm going to lay there for 8 hours, starving to death in the heat with flies biting me. And as an infinite, unlimited being, see, in our minds, we instantly say, I would do that first one. Why would anyone ever do the second one? I would never do the second one. But infinite, unlimited being without the ability to have experience, knowing that it can't be hurt or harmed or killed or damaged, and it has inexhaustible freedom to do this an infinite number of times, there is no preference between door number 1 or door number 2. It's all about experience. I'm going to project out of eternity into time and space to have experience. And so you waited one more second, and then you looked and you said, damn, door number 3. Oh my gosh. You know what? If I don't pick quickly, there's going to be too many options. I'm picking door number 3, and that was the life of you. And that's exactly what you chose. And that is why an infinite, unlimited being would have chosen this. Now, this leads to one of the most crucial pieces of all the work that I do, especially for world changers. Okay? You're involved in this summit, whether you're Mira, and Scott leading it, or whether you're one of the speakers, or whether you're someone I'm interested in sustainability and creating the world I want to live in. I want to impact this. If you are in opposition to what is, in any way, shape, or form, you are feeding it. Even if you've hidden and repressed the fact that you're in opposition to anyone out there, the people who would repress free energy, that's your creation too. It's showing up to mirror something to you that you believe, and fighting against them is going to create more of the same. So the more you can breathe in through your nose and out through your mouth, yourself into that calm, centered place of presence where you're not in fight or flight, needing a fight, needing an enemy, so that these emotions in you can have an outlet. As you become present and you notice the things that you don't like, whether they're personal, mommy saying you can't have the cookie and punishing you for something you didn't do, or it grows all the way up into a multinational corporation trying to take over the food supply and poisoning everybody. If you don't see that you are creating it, if you're willing to say, is it possible that this is actually my creation, whether I understand it or not? and you choose presence, and you realize that what Bucky said, don't fight the existing systems, create the ones that you want. Then this brings you to the next place, which is, if you carry around the emotional things that have been lurking, and beating around in your guts since early childhood, you will continue to hit the glass ceilings that they project. You will continue to bump up against the authorities and the seeming external enemies that those emotions are creating in your life, so that they can be felt and healed and dissolved. And once they're dissolved, the biggest enemies that you think you have, the biggest pains that you think you have, the biggest frustrations that you're convinced that you have, are actually your resources and your power frozen into structures that you have been alienating and repressing and fighting, and thereby perpetuating. So as you come into presence, breathing in this way, and being willing to be curious, is it possible that I am creating this? Is it possible that this guy might not be crazy? Maybe this actually works. You're going to see that by meeting those things with love, it will change. And I'm going to drop this in. If you're feeling right now in any way, shape, or form, wow, you know what? This kind of makes sense. It's a little far-fetched. It's a little far out. Think about what Mira said at the beginning of this. And there's I love the way that Mira is actually doing this, and the way that she and her team have decided to put this together, where it's a non-sales, this is a gift, this is a huge benefit to everyone who sees it. And the steps you can take with Sustainability Now to go further, the ways that they've come up with to do it where anyone can say yes to, it's just huge. So I don't want to violate that in any way, shape, or form. I just want to say that you can click a few buttons on YouTube and do some research on me, and you're going to find people like you. I have thousands of hours of free stuff on YouTube, and you're going to find videos from other people like Mira, powerful, brilliant people who say, you know what, that sounded kind of crazy to me too, but let me tell you what changed in my life when I applied it, and that may help you to take this a little more to heart. And again, breathing deep and letting it in. So
I'm gonna jump in just to bring it back around to everything that's happening is happening for me and through me.
Yeah.
And so creating that context and understanding the notion of infinite unlimited being, it gives us an opportunity as quote, what might appear to be obstacles, as appearing obstacles arise, that's an opportunity to see where there's a place in ourselves that we can send more love and more appreciation and dissolve whatever that was, that primal pain, to get to that freedom.
Beautifully said. And that really sparked something for me, Mira. I have about 80 threads that just came together. So all those at once. All right. So how many teachers today are saying that self-love is the answer? And I look at that, and I heard a couple of people recently say, if I hear one more person tell me that self-love is everything, I'm going to kill them. Because nobody
right.
exactly how to do the self-love thing. And I have a lot of respect for a lot of the teachers out there, Tony Robbins and a whole bunch of other teachers that have been saying forever, you create your reality and everything's happening for you. But they never teach exactly how it's happening for you. And so that can be a huge frustration to hear everything's happening for me. So I want to take it down to the roots of the roots. And even though I've said this from two angles, I want to make it the clearest that I can. If you're in opposition to anything, it's yourself you're in opposition to, whether you know it or not. And you are creating more suffering for yourself by being in opposition. So one thing you could do right now is just make a short list. Who are the companies and who are the people that I'm just convinced they're bad guys and that they need to be eradicated, and we're going to, pull the rug out from under them? I'm not saying not to take action. I'm saying to take action from love and appreciation. That is a part of myself that I have spun off, dissociated myself from, whether I comprehend it, whether I understand it or not. So I'm going to make damn sure that I am bringing love and presence to every thought, every conversation, every dealing. I'm not going to join any groups that are against that company. I am going to be focused on how can I love that company and those individuals and that organization back into love itself. I know it's a part of me, whether I understand that it is or not. Okay. So with this, I'm going to go really, really, really deep.
And I'm going to stop you before you do.
Please.
Just because this is such a critical thing as we see rising tribalism, and we also have a rising need for unity.
Yeah.
When we can take the perspective that it's all me and I am all of it, we're all connected. People have different language for it, but when we recognize that we all are one, that's when we have the power to transform and to create a world we want to move toward instead of one we want to move away from.
Beautiful. And I'm going to throw some jet fuel on top of that and light it. And that includes those in the world who are fanatically pushing for division and opposition.
Yes.
Okay. I am the opposite of political. I'm not interested in either pole in any way, shape, or form. I am interested in present, focusing on creating the world of love and joy and peace that is actually the truth. And so I can look at any political position and see that doesn't line up. Okay. The identity politics that's being done to make people identify as part of a group, and now you guys are the victims. So I don't care if it's Trump or Marianne Williamson or if it's Putin. It doesn't matter. They are me, reflecting parts of myself that I have denied, repressed, and rejected until they showed up seemingly outside of me. Now, until I can learn to love every single one of them, I don't have to agree with them. Until I can learn to love them, I am creating more of the hell that I'm not liking and that I'm fighting. And so that's really the bottom line of this whole thing. And how
exactly. It's like the nemesis. How do we love our nemesis?
Yeah, the first step is going to be to breathe in through your nose and out through your mouth and to become present. Okay, so we were born into trauma. We were born into illusion of a lack of unconditional love so that we could have these experiences. Nobody's wrong or bad. Our parents, yeah, they were probably pretty crazy. And yes, of course, they were doing their best. But more than that, they were doing exactly what we programmed the situation to be that we could come into. And so as we become present, which is the opposite of what we've been doing since before we were born, as we come into presence, we can see it from peace. We can see it from our larger self. And if anything does get triggered along the way with this deeper breathing and the wider presence, that triggering can actually dissolve just in the light of our own presence. And if you were to right now, if we could push the magic button and you became infinitely present, you would instantaneously see that you have no enemies. In fact, everything outside of you that ever looked like an enemy would lose its motivation to be oppositional to you, because you're the only one projecting it. Your power that's creating your universe is infinitely beyond your wildest dreams. So I'm going to reiterate. As you well know, Mira, I have people that come out and sit with me for 4 days and nights of ultra deep, intense work. And I constantly bring them back to the breath and presence, because without that, well, I'll give you something that came through me with the last person I had sitting here. This came through about 8 times. There's nothing in this world that you are ever going to say that is as important as becoming present before you say it. There's nothing in this world that is you're ever going to have to say, oh my gosh, if I could just say this, if I could. No, nothing you will ever say is as important as becoming present before you say it. You just let that sink in. It might take a few times. And there's nothing in this world that you're going to do or change that is as urgent or important as coming to presence before you take action. And the irony is that all the action you take and all the things you say from non-presence is how you've been creating what you don't like.
Say it again.
Everything that you've been seeing and getting that you don't like is what arises when you speak and act from non-presence. You are creating it all profoundly beyond what you probably imagine. And what's ironic is even the 70% of the people who have heard and kind of get, well, yeah, we create our own reality up to a point. No. Even the 5% who actually really believe we create our own reality, I say this with humility and respect to you, it's still, in all probability, infinitely beyond what you've allowed yourself to fully see. I am creating Monsanto. They are showing up to reveal to me things I unconsciously believe that I know that are operating at the non-physical level. They're projecting out as this seemingly physical universe. All that I like and love and all that I hate and fear, it's actually still all me. So being able to bring that love, and how do we do that? So first of all, breathing ourselves into presence before we do anything else and keeping that in place. The next thing is what I call spell breaking. And at its, we just don't have time for a full exposition on that. In my free book, it's a #1 international bestseller. It comes with several free videos. It's 100% free, no strings attached.
And it's life-changing.
Yeah, it is a life-changing.
So it really is a gift. It's not sales. This is a gift. This is something that you need to check out, and it'll change things for you. It'll change you.
Truly. And I wrote this book to be the book that I was looking for during the 40 years that my life was a train wreck. And I bought all the self-help stuff. I wrote the book that I would have crawled across broken glass to get to had it existed. And it's 100% free. All the videos that come with it are free. Here, though, is the bottom line. And I'm going to revisit what I said early on as I invite you to breathe. And this might be a great way to wrap this up and summarize this paradigm shift. And then, Mira, I'm more than happy to answer any clarifying questions that I can. Okay. You are projecting out of eternity into this illusion of time and space. You are eternity. You are the source of eternity. You are eternity, and you are the infinite possibilities dwelling in eternity. You chose to have experience. Infinite, unlimited being choosing to have experience. Experience isn't possible at the eternal level where there's no time and space and therefore no movement or change or limitation. You project out into time and space to have this experience. The first thing you landed against was the first thing you created, the illusion of mom and dad, father and mother, so that you could project through them. So you landed in the midst of everything that they haven't resolved, all of their trauma and all of their emotion. And you're here to resolve what they could not. And of course, that includes pollution and plastic in the ocean and glyphosate and oil companies. It's all still you. So therefore, to be in opposition or to be in fear is not an appropriate or helpful response at all. Moving beyond that requires you to come into presence. As you become present, you begin to realize what all the spiritual people are talking about, which is that you are creating your own reality. You are infinitely powerful beyond your wildest dreams. There is, in fact, no power outside of you, because the universe is in effect your body. What you're seeing is you. So as you choose to come to more and more peace, as you choose to love everything that you see, as you choose to remind yourself, wait a minute, it's all happening for me. Let me check my language. When I just said, I need to fix this, I was actually revealing that I believe that there's a problem to fix. I was perpetuating it by speaking it, and I was about to take actions to do it. That's not presence. Wait a minute. I see this situation, and I would prefer that it was this way. I see this situation, and I would prefer that it was this way. And as you focus your energy into preferring that it were that way, and as you focus your energy and your attention and your awareness into how you prefer it was, continuing to check yourself, to check your presence, you can begin to dissolve every glass ceiling that you have ever bumped into, and every pain that has ever shown up in your body or shown up on the x-rays or shown up as a corporate monster. You just remind yourself, this is all me. Let me breathe a little deeper. Let me get myself into even more presence. Let me allow these emotions to come up and be expressed that I've been repressing, that are now reaching out and showing up as these bad guys. And let me just remember that it's all me. It's all for me. And I can change all of it. And ironically, Mira, I agree with you infinitely about this summit. And that's why I'm here, and I'm grateful that you interviewed me. And I will tell you that it doesn't take us. I remind you, whoever is listening, it doesn't take us. It takes me. It takes you choosing. And suddenly you begin to remember, wait, everything here is me. So in effect, everyone that exists is cells in my body. And right now, Mira and Brian, 2 cells in my body, agreeing with me of how we want this to go and actually showing me a way to facilitate it. Wow, it's already working. So choosing the breath, choosing presence, expanding from there to focus on what you want, constantly reminding yourself, this is me happening for me, through me. There is no power outside of me, and there is no enemy. I'm going to start creating what I want, and I'm ready to dissolve these glass ceilings that are actually made out of me. I'm ready to dissolve this illusion of enemies, which is actually in me. I'm going to breathe my way through it and create the world that I want to live in. And that's the paradigm shift.
It is. And I just want to put a couple points on that. From that paradigm, there's no such thing as victimhood.
None. Zero.
So, exactly. So that's huge. There is no other, as you said, no opposition. It takes self-love to an entirely different level, to a cosmic level,
Yeah.
which is just being love.
Which is our truth. And so as we become
Exactly.
present, we become what we actually always were, and we release the illusions of what we thought we were.
Exactly. So is there anything that we need to complete this magnificent perspective shift? I mean, if you guys that are watching and listening really take this in and take it to heart and allow yourself to play with it, and notice when there's something out in the world, what's going on inside of you. The outside is the reflection of the inside, and it allows you to connect with the primal pain that we mentioned earlier. And Brian, you said you find those emotional experiences, and without having to add the story to it, we can breathe through that emotion and allow it to dissolve, and the world changes because our projection has changed.
Yeah, beautiful. So beautiful. And I will wrap with a comment just directly speaking to you hearing me right now. And I assume you're watching this as opposed to just listening. So I'm just going to look straight in your eyes and tell you this as if you were sitting here in the living room with me. From where I sit, you are perfect. You're flawless. You're eternal. There is nothing wrong with you. There never was anything wrong with you. There isn't anything wrong with you. There never can be anything wrong with you. That's just a complete misperception. Understandable after the way you created a childhood and an educational system that would teach you all the things that are wrong with you in the world. I'm telling you, nah, you don't have any punishment to wait for. There is no inevitable hammer that's going to fall. When you created this universe, you created all the religions and all the philosophies and all the governmental and educational and military and medical systems that you have believed and bought their lies, which were your lies, that you programmed into them to make this a really trippy, intense ride. I'm reminding you, you don't have to take my word for it. Nothing wrong with you. You have no punishments to wait for unless you continue to make them. And your powerful love beyond anything you have ever allowed yourself to even imagine, and your ability to create the universe is already proven, because you're already creating your universe perfectly. You don't need to learn to manifest. You are ready to choose presence so that you can become aware that what you're seeing and experiencing is what you're manifesting. And from presence, you can change it without limitation. You can change it all the way you want it to go. And knowing that I'm you and you're me, and we're literally one. We're not connected, and we're not connected to source. We're it. So I can say without any limitations, I love you and I accept you. In my view, you and I are already forgiven for absolutely everything, because we gave it before when we created this illusion of something to forgive. And so I high five you, I hug you, and I say, if you want to, join me, and I'll join you in creating this the way we actually want it to be, and loving all those voices of fear and control that have been making it the way we no longer want it to be.
Beautifully said. So I just want to add too that from this level 5 perspective, we don't have to figure out why a certain circumstance exists in our lives. We don't have to figure out what's wrong with me, or what's the mechanism, or why do I always do this. We can actually just allow ourselves to rise to the place of creator and choose our preference, and choose again and again and again.
Absolutely, yes.
So Brian, I just want to say thank you so much. I hope that the folks that are participating and that have had the opportunity to be part of this here and now get the benefit that's available to them, and just expand into joy and expression and lots and lots of love.
I'm with you.
Yeah.
Thanks, Mira.
Thank you.
Everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us. Keep the momentum going by checking out all the other experts. Every one of them has invaluable information that you can't afford to miss. Buy the Premium Summit Package now. Join the global conversation in our Facebook group and take action in your home, community, or the world at large. Together, we will shape a world that works.